Hey everyone, welcome back to Behind the Emerald Veil podcast with Ali and Mandy from Soul Star Energy Collective. We are intuitives, we are healers, and we are spiritual teachers that are here to help others connect back to their soul and discover their gifts and, just raise humanity's vibration.
That's a good one.
A little bit of magic.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we need a little bit of magic. So today we are talking. I'm excited to talk about this because it's fun to talk about just you and I. We get all like passionate and stuff.
It gets heated.
It does. It's just like fun, but it's like we also know how it can sometimes be triggering and all that stuff. So it's like, you know what? This was the whole point of the podcast, was conversations that we would just like have on the couch together, and to do it on here. And we've been having these conversations on the couch together, and so now we're bringing it to you guys.
I thought
Lucky
you said
you.
I thought when you were like, this was the point of the podcast, I thought you were going with like to trigger you.
Oh no, not at all.
No, we're not here to trigger you, but beware.
We hate triggering. That goes against our people pleasing. Definitely my people pleasing. I'm already uncomfortable.
It's against our grain.
I'm like looking down. I'm like, I don't want to upset anybody. Okay, so what we're talking about, and this is where it's like, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. If you're like, oh, heck to the no.
A good opportunity to practice discernment.
100%, right? It really is. And that's the thing. Like if you're kind of like, nope, that doesn't resonate with me, perfect, then it doesn't resonate. That's all part of it, our own sovereign.
But we hope you come back for other fun episodes.
Of course. Oh my God, we're making it sound like it's awful. It's not. We're just talking about like basically like this concept. I know we're like,
we're gonna pierce the veil a little bit, because as you go down this path and you start to I guess raise your frequency, you begin to see things so clearly. Like you see through the bullshit very, very easily. And when we say you see through the bullshit, we don't necessarily mean just like in your own little life. Well, nobody's life is little. That sounded condescending. Sorry. I didn't mean it to sound like that.
Our lives are like our own little lives, because
it's like our own little universe. But what we're talking about is, you see through the bullshit of like what's happening on the grander scale, like in the bigger picture. So like, what's going on with the government, what's going on in the world news, even down to the Super Bowl and celebrities and Hollywood and like all that sort of stuff. And you just kind of sit there and watch, and you're just like, holy shit, like how does nobody see this, like see through this? And I'm sure tons of people are beginning to see through it, because I know I didn't see through it until I started to go down this path, but it can also be very disappointing when you start to realize how many of the people that you might look up to, or that you might really enjoy as a musician or celebrity. I don't know if anybody enjoys politicians, but maybe you do. I don't know. Like when you start to realize that they're just puppets in a bigger game, and they're doing shit that affects you on a smaller scale in a negative way. And it can be hard to like be okay with that.
Oh, absolutely. And like, and I think in the sense of like, even with just things like the pharmaceutical industry and stuff like that, like I know for the longest time, I would sit there in my naive brain and be like, there's no way, when I would hear some of these like outrageous concepts, I'm like, no, there's no way, if they had a cure for cancer, there's no way they would allow people to die. Like that's human beings dying. Like I literally was like, I just couldn't bring myself to believe that in my own innocent mind, because I was like, if you had a cure, you would never allow anybody to suffer again. And so I think it's things like that, or even the government, or even like all of the things. There's no way this would be rolled out on a big scale. Like, somebody would be a whistleblower, something would happen. I'm like, there's just no way. And then then I find like you say, like that veil starts to thin and it starts to drop and you're seeing things through a lens that you've never seen before. And you're sitting there going like, holy shit, there is a way. And, you start to see the reality of things that, yeah, at the end of the day, unfortunately, money and power is a driving force for a lot of people.
Well, for this whole world.
For the whole world. And that it's in like, it doesn't matter who it's like hurting at the end of the day. And so, maybe you, me, and people listening here could be like, I can't even fucking fathom that, but that's because we're not made up that way.
Exactly.
But it's shocking to realize how many people are made up that way.
I know. And how many people, like, you think of the players in the world, like the bigger players who are making big decisions for collective groups, like, presidents or prime ministers or whatever, and realizing that, the shit that they're doing is unreal, but also they're just doing what they're told. For a bigger picture. But we could take this all the way back. You know what I find fascinating? Like, at this day and age in 2024, now we, like, because of the internet, so it's almost like they shot themselves in the foot with the technology that they allowed to be created, because with social media and being able to know what's going on in across the world in time, like in real time, instead of having to rely on the news, the media and stuff to tell us what's happening. So there's like the duality there. So it's helping the light side in a grand way, but it's also helping the dark side by keeping our children and us distracted by scrolling and consuming and all that sort of stuff. But what I love about it is that there's so much information out there now, so you can actually see, you can go all the way back, and there's been people that have done this research, and then they link the research that they found, but you can go all the way back to the ancient times, like when Jesus was alive and when he was persecuted. You know what I learned? That is where I shouldn't say patriarchy started, but because before patriarchy, like that, the Romans had that dialed in, where the Roman Empire had created a hierarchy system where women were just, meat in a sense, like they were your slaves. Women just did whatever. But then, with the rise of Christianity, did you know Christianity was illegal in Rome?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was illegal to be a Christian in Rome. And then fast forward, they had to work with the Christians because that was gaining so much popularity. So at some point down the road, one of the Roman empires indoctrinated, or I don't know if that's the right word, but brought in and started to work with the Christian religion, but didn't have any females in their in the decision making, because they wanted to continue to suppress the female, the divine feminine, that energy. So they worked with the males and they created a narrative, whatever narrative they want. So they've been creating narratives since the beginning of freaking time.
Oh my God.
And so they created the narrative and used the church to manipulate the people. And then you see what they did to the Christians. It was legal to be Christian at some point, and then it was illegal to be pagan, because then you were a witch.
And isn't that ironic that the Christians had to overcome this, it was illegal to be a Christian, and then they end up turning around and doing the same thing to a different group that was done to them. But also in that is like, when you look at power, and gaining power, even just, let's just even take it to our corporate jobs, for instance, like take it down to the micro. So you have somebody that manages you and somebody that manages them, and so on and so forth. We've got the hierarchy, we've got the power. If you piss off the person above you, you're shit out of luck. So if you don't like what the person above you is doing and you voice this and you stand up, well, guess where you're going? You're going to the
Nowhere.
bottom of the pack, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get a name because they hold enough power in their position, and so on and so forth. So in this sense, you can really kind of see it in your own day-to-day lives, how this kind of trickles forward. So shit, I don't want to lose my job, or shit, I need to make more money. I can't like shoot myself in the foot and not have a career. Okay, fine. I'll go along with whatever they're saying. Because yeah, if you're the loudmouth speaking up, tisk, 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 you get, kind of like flagged, X marked. And so you can literally see in our own lives, how that can happen, and how that control and that, the fall of that control can, affect people in that sense, and how you become puppeteers. Because I know it's so easy to be like, well, I would never do that, because of this, this, and this. But when it's a big part of your livelihood.
Yeah. Well, what do they say? What's that saying? Shit rolls downhill.
Yeah. But
it comes from the top and then it rolls downhill.
It rolls down. Yeah. But you can see how power, like, even in our own lives, can affect us, like, I feel like I've experienced it in the bank, where, I've had that experience where somebody, higher up didn't like me, and it didn't matter. Like, it was even in the part where I felt like that scenario was, even when I tried to go above, and because in my head I was always like, if something's wrong, no, you go above, or you do this, like there would always be a resolution. And it was really like eye-opening to be like, holy shit, even if you go above, if they're all connected, there's nothing if you're not in the end. And so then you're like, oh my God. So you can see where, whether it's celebrities, politicians, whatever. Yes, those are all on the grander scale, but on the smaller scale, it's like, even within our workplace, I see people that, even with my situation that I have, that follow or have followed a certain individual. And even if they don't agree with how they do things, they're like, well, I don't want to be on the bad side. Because if I'm on the bad side, then I'm shit out of luck. So
then your career's in jeopardy. Yeah. I've experienced that too, where there's I've been a couple of managers at some point, like earlier in my career, where it was like, ooh, you don't want to piss that person off because they'll ruin your career. And I'm like, ooh, thanks for the warning.
Yeah.
But I'm sure this probably happens even into a smaller scale of like the family dynamic. Do you know what I mean? Like there's probably tons of people listening to this podcast where they're like, I can equate that to my family dynamic too, where I don't want to piss off this person because everybody else is interconnected with each other. And that's just going to cause a whole mess. So it's best for me just to like silence myself and not say anything, or I'm just going to cause this big issue. So then that just creates that tension or that disconnection in the family unit as well. And sometimes it is best to just say, see you later.
Yeah. So it's like, I always kind of find that interesting, because like, you know me, I like to like, look at a situation and look at all angles of it. And so the easiest way to do that is to bring it into from this like bigger scale, like how could these stars or Hollywood singers or whatever like do this? And then it's like, well, wait, let's just bring this down. Or like, even in the sense of like conspiracy theory, it's like, no way, if there was this happening, like somebody would freaking say something. There's no way that they could.
People have said something. So let's just talk about one that we can, so we can refer to a specific one. Okay, so let's talk about the Super Bowl and the celebrities and the Hollywood and stuff like that. So right now is so obvious to me and to Allie, and maybe to some people and maybe not to others. So pay attention if you're like, what are they talking about? But you can really, really notice the who, and so what we're going to refer to the elites, I don't know, like the Illuminati maybe, or the industry, I don't know what you want to call them. Whatever it's the decision makers.
Yeah.
Decision makers will approach certain celebrities and say, hey, I can guarantee you fame and fortune, and popularity and celebrity A status and all these beautiful, amazing things that you have been working so hard to get on your own. I can give that to you if you do X, Y, Z, or agree to whatever. I don't know what the terms are because I've never been approached by one of these people. But basically it is like, yeah, I will do that. I will take this step. So they basically plant these celebrities, and you can tell which ones have been planted or which ones they're working on, because these celebrities have influence, right? Amongst the young people, amongst certain like groups of people, amongst whatever, like you can look at, say, Taylor Swift right now. She is huge and very influential, and she got very far in her career until what appears to be a huge spike in popularity and her Eras tour and like all these things. Like that's suspect, right?
That's sus.
That's sus.
And then so
even
word?
like Beyonce or like Justin Bieber at some point, do you know what I mean? Like there's these people that you can tell were doing their thing, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're everywhere. They're making millions and trillions of dollars, like all of these things. And then, but you can tell that they have had help. Do you know what I mean? To get to the status that they're at. And it's because they have influence, and they want them to have more influence so that they can control. And I don't mean to pick on like Taylor Swift, because I'm a Swiftie. Like I loved Taylor Swift's music. You loved her music. It's just an example. And maybe she's not part of it. I could totally be wrong because I don't know. This is just speculation. Ali and I have not done any connecting or anything for this topic. It's just kind of like what we're feeling, the energy that we're feeling. But you can tell, you can just see it. Like if there's what are you telling me the other day? There was this one YouTuber that is now interviewing all of these like celebrities, what do they call it?
A-listers
out of nowhere. And she just went from nobody to like this huge interviewer. And, you know, you have to wonder, she has influence, or she's creating influence. Has she been approached, and did she accept, right?
Yeah. Back to Taylor.
Back to
you went over a whole bunch of things, and I was like, we're not skipping over that. So Taylor Swift. So this is something that I for sure have struggled with, because I, to my core, do not want to believe that there's been corruption, or there's, the conspiracy theories and all those things, because, I love her music, but I also love what she has done as a female.
Yeah.
And it's been something that, I've been hearing, and then I'm like, no. And I'm like, I'm just going to ignore it. And there could be people on here saying the same thing, like, not Taylor. And
how
again,
dare
like,
you?
how dare you? And like that still is me, because I do see, this female figure that has fought for things, that, has gone beyond what, has pushed herself and pushed scenarios where really could have blacklisted her, and has blacklisted other females in Hollywood, in just life in general. And so for me, I'm like, with my strong justice side, I'm like, oh my God, it is so beautiful to see a young female, push for her rights and push back the narrative and exceed, and like actually like not get scared and keep going. Like she had that whole thing with her, I think it was her manager or whatever. I don't know all the details, but I just know that, there was this conflict, and it was like, no, I want the rights to my music or whatever. And there was some type of thing. And we know, like, we've heard this throughout the music industry, throughout the movies, like women within these industries have openly spoken about how it is to be a female in this type of industry, and it's very male dominated and run, and there's lots of stuff. And so, for her as a young female to be like, no, that is wrong, and I'm not accepting it, and ends up taking action to literally stuff it to them. So to me, I'm like, oh my God, I fucking love that. How could she be part of this corrupt system when she is doing this? How can she be part of this corrupt system when she's donating, tons of money to all the cities that she goes to? And I'm like, how can there be such conflicting? She's doing so much good. How could there be some bad? But with all of that and saying all of that, when I watch her in interviews, I do not want to admit it, but I feel a shift in energy. And I've sat there and I've been like, why are you feeling uncomfortable? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, no, listen to her. She's so good. And then all of a sudden this energy comes up and it's like, no, something's off, Allison. And I'm like, and it's so hard, like even to the point my mom and I have gone head to head about Taylor, because mom's all like, oh, she just has so many boyfriends, and I was like, excuse me. And that's like, that is such a sexist thing, like, why is she gonna say? So that's how much I've kind of like stood up for this figure. And I still will. I think we did it on the weekend where I was like, shut up. I'm like, what woman needs to fall, why does she have to go and fall in love with somebody if there's not, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, energy doesn't lie. And, there is this unsettling feeling that I do when I see her talking or when I see her going about. And, it made me realize like, okay, so even, I am, again, this is probably the starseed in me that's like all like naive, and I'm thinking, okay, so let me put myself in this person's shoes, is wanting to do good in the world, has passion for music, all of these things, all of a sudden gets presented with something, and hey, like you'll have this and this, but you have to do this and this and this. I could see the rationale, especially, I'm assuming when it's presented, it's like, you see in the movies where it's like,
there's an opportunity.
Don't read the fine print, right? Like you always see like that wicked witch or something, and it's like, and they're like, sign here, and it looks beautiful, and then it's like, oh, you didn't realize what you just did, fucker. And so like I could see it being presented definitely like that, but I could also see someone, and let's just say Taylor, and I can say because I'm hoping that's what it is. But you could see somebody that is like, you know what? So even though I'm doing this and this, if I get that much money, I'm going to be able to do so much good, right? So I could see where somebody could be optimistic and be tricked into something like this, thinking like, that's fine, but I'm going to do even more good that's going to outweigh blah, blah, blah. But I think what also happens with these things is like, you didn't read the fine print, and I could see where all of a sudden it's reality starts to kick in. And I think that's where we've seen certain stars that when the reality does hit of like, holy shit, what did I do? That's when you start to see them kind of unravel.
Yeah. And then you will notice that, okay, so let's talk about that for a sec, because it is clear now, knowing what we know and putting kind of the pieces together and stuff.
Knowing what we think we know.
You can look back at certain celebrities and see, their struggle with their mental health. So Justin Bieber would be one of them that I remember more recently, where there was a period of time where he just kind of had to like stop everything. Yeah. And he was struggling with his mental health. Now, mind you, they got their hooks in him when he was super young and very impressionable. So of course he's growing up in the spotlight. There's all of these different aspects to his mental health that I'm sure contributed to whatever it was that he went through. But there's also, a realization that comes with, oh shit, like I'm really deep, especially if because what they do is they host like rituals, and because I think the other part that we're missing here, speaking about, is that this group of people know how to work with energy, and they work with energy, and they do spell casting, and they know all of the portals, and they work with certain, like they know all the astrological things. Like they are beyond what we are beyond with regard to their knowledge and experience working with energy. So you think of like, in a sense, black magic, or like it's real shit. And these groups of people are using and utilizing this energy and their knowledge to make them more powerful. But then what they're doing is like when they have these younger celebrities or whatever, there's certain rituals, and we talk about doing rituals like new moon rituals, full moon rituals. We do, bathing rituals, like little rituals, reading cards.
Ours is the light rituals,
right?
We're dancing naked by the fire.
They take their rituals like, and it's like so big and so powerful, and it's not really of the light as much as we would like it to be. So I would imagine Justin Bieber, for example, probably experienced maybe his first ritual or a ritual that made his human and his starseed and his light super uncomfortable, and then he didn't know how to manage that after, or he struggled managing that after. That is my speculation as to what happens when a celebrity, all of a sudden is doing great and then really struggles with their mental health for a period of time. And then, some of them, I don't know, like you think about all the celebrities that died of drug overdose. Like, did they, you know what I mean?
Oh,
were they going to blow the whistle? Had they had enough? You think all of those, a lot of them were light workers, were kind, like you think of Heath Ledger, you think of Cory, what's his name from the music high school, what is it called?
Oh, yeah. What?
His name was Cory.
I know, it's a show.
It was a show, and it was music. Anyway,
high school musical thing.
Yeah, he died so young, and he was such a bright
Glee.
Glee.
Thank you to somebody. I'm like, literally, it was like, I'm like, what is it? And I was like asking out in the realm, and then I heard Glee. Thank you so much. Actually, I think that came from Holly.
Oh,
I'll be interested to hear if she was yelling that.
Yeah, Glee.
Glee. Well, you said that really like stern, like Hollywood. It's Glee.
Yeah, but it makes you wonder, right? Like it makes you really think, and it makes you go, huh, and ask the questions, which is really the point of this episode, is so that we shouldn't just take everything verbatim anytime, even what we're saying to you today. Mm-hmm. It is meant for you to be like, huh, that's interesting concept. I never really thought about it like that. I'm going to sit with that and do a little bit more research or digging or whatever, if you feel called to.
And it's really hard though, like I think that the hard thing to get our heads around is like, you think of like somebody like Heath Ledger, like, and again, like none of us really know these people, so we're just assuming, but he did seem like a really good soul in person. And so then you're like, well, how the hell would somebody like that get caught up in that shit? And like there's no way this person would do this, or even talking about like the darkness that this has. And I'm like, but I also I think like, again, there's people that are either duped by it in the sense where they didn't realize what they were saying yes to. Yep. And yes, they are good people down to the, like, we're at the end of the day, we're all souls. We're all at the end of the day, every single soul in this world will go to the same place. Every single soul is still pure love. Even if awful things that person or that soul has, or that person has done, that soul will leave this incarnation and, maybe be in a longer period of healing, because, as a soul, when we disengage from the body and we are back to our full awareness, and we realize what we did within that body, is very hard on a soul. So, and I'm like, and again, that can be very, very, very triggering for people, especially when we see a lot of this disgusting hate and awful things that are happening in the world and have happened. It's very hard to think like, what the fuck, we're all going to go to the same place. Really, that soul's going to be feeling horrible about whatever. Yeah, they are. And that's part of us existing and learning and evolving as souls. And so even these celebrities, you know, at the end of the day, they are all pure love, and what happens in their human form does not take away that purity and that love within their eternal light, right?
Yeah. I'm even just thinking, like, as you're talking, Matthew Perry popped into my head, and it's almost like when there's a soul, because he struggled with his alcoholism and drug addiction, mostly likely fueled due to, you know, the industry that he was in and the expectations and all the things that he had to do or was expected to do. But I almost feel like his death or his passing was on purpose, like in a sense of his request to get out. Like his soul wanted to be free from,
like, I'm done with this.
Yeah. And because he needed to get out, or he wanted to get out because of he needed to be released from that, I guess, that darkness perhaps, or whatever. So there had to be some sort of ritual or ceremony for him, sacrifice in a way, for him to be released, so that his human had to die. But there, you know, there was speculation about his passing and it being a sacrifice, because there was some things tied to another celebrity, and then their rise to fame shortly after his passing, like a quick rise to fame. So there was some tying to that. I think it was Dua Lipa or something like that.
Lipa?
Yeah, I can't say for sure. I didn't pay too much attention to it, but I was hearing things or seeing things and reading things about a little bit. I wasn't diving deep. It wasn't a rabbit hole I was going down, but I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. If a celebrity needed or wanted to be released from this experience or from that energy, with all of the rituals and satanic stuff that they do to keep this power and this influence over the people, and really, as they pull on that energy and the power through like the portals and the astrological events and stuff like that, I imagine that a sacrifice might have to be made in order for them to be, you know, released into the light or whatever, however that works. I don't know how that works, but that's just kind of the sense that I get. So you think about all the celebrities that, you know, died of an overdose or drug addiction or whatever, like it kind of makes it suspect, you know. Is that truly what happened? And sure, truly maybe that is what happened, but with the intention behind it or the purpose behind it, because yeah, interesting to think about in that sense.
Well, and I, you know, 100% believe that, you know, people are assassinated, taken out for whatever reasons.
Oh yeah.
You know, if you know too much or whatever, and that has happened throughout history, that, you know, you see these things, and what a great way to do it nowadays, because drugs is so prevalent. Like, what an easy way to say this person had an overdose.
Yeah.
And what an easy way because, you know, the way you can tarnish somebody's reputation. So again, bringing it back to the micro in your own work, you know, you saying that someone's like, don't get on that person's because they'll destroy it. They're tarnishing your reputation. And that has nothing to do with social media or anything. That's just in your own life, how easy somebody can say something and it can take flight. And so now with social media on a grander scale, it's like, how easy is it to plant things, and how easy is it to make clips distort reality? And this is even before AI. We were able to do this. You take one little clip from an interview and that's all you're hearing, but you didn't hear the last half of what they were saying. So they could have said like, oh yeah, I like to do this, like never. But all you hear is the, oh yeah, I like to do this. And then everybody's like, oh yeah, I like to do this. So even in the sense of the speculation with the stars and stuff like that, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. With a grain of salt, yes. You know, like the video I sent to you yesterday. So the Bobby Atloff, I don't know if that's her last name, but her first name is Bobby. So she was the one that you were bringing up, that she's a YouTuber, but she started this podcast. And she's kind of risen in fame like, woo. And I have actually, I started following her because she started interviewing like some big ass stars. And what's made her very popular is because of like the way she does it. Like she's kind of like stone cold, and she makes
deadpan.
Yeah, it makes the interview very awkward and all of these things. So it's, unique.
Sounds so fun.
Oh my
Let's
God.
have her onto the podcast.
Oh my God. I would be so uncomfortable. I'd be like, yeah, I can't handle that shit. But, there was this video that was going around being like, has anybody ever wondered, like she rose to fame so quickly, and how is she getting these A-lister interviews? Like, what the hell? She was a nobody. And so in this video, they share this clip of her talking on her podcast, because somebody had asked her on the podcast, are you industry implant, whatever the
plant in the industry.
A plant industry implant.
I don't.
Yeah, I thought it was industry implant.
Implanted by the industry.
Yeah. And so she goes in and starts, or in this thing, she's saying these words, where it was like, I got a call, and at the same time somebody showed up my door and they were saying this and blah, 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 blah. I'm like very like deadpan serious about it. And I know that could have easily been part of an interview where she was like, of course, ha ha ha, they did this, they did that, they did this. And then right after could have said, of course not, this is why, blah, blah, blah. So that's where we have to take everything with a grain of salt, that it's like, we can't just believe everything we hear, because it can be altered. But at the same time, the other side of that is like, you have a lot of stars literally saying exactly what's going on, and like just saying what it is in the sense to undermine it. So
yes, it's like hiding in plain sight. So there's so many people who are onto it now. And there have been whistleblowers, like you can think of Cat Williams. He just did a huge like 2-hour interview on a podcast and called out all of the comedians in his industry on all of the dark shit that they do and the shortcuts they took. And like he doesn't hold back at all. That was a great interview. And then you think of Kanye West calling out certain celebrities, and do you know what they've done? They've created the narrative that he's fucking crazy, and everybody believes it, right?
Yeah. And again, like, we're not saying, I don't know either way if he's crazy or not, but I can see
arrogant. He's always been very arrogant.
Yeah. And so we don't know if like, either he's got bipolar, whatever it is, and he struggles, and a mental illness, and this is what happens, and very paranoid. Like, I do believe that there is that is true. Things like that can happen and be. So I don't know if that is what the case is, but I can also see the other side and be like, that is also a possibility. I literally, both to me can be true. So whether we know which one it is, I can see how any industry can, if you have somebody that's all of a sudden being like, screw this shit, I'm going to start telling everybody, oh, how easy is that to twist it? And now you're a psycho, and everybody's like, we don't believe anything you say because you're fucking weird, because that's what they've created the narrative. We see that narrative within the news. We've seen so many people have been like, don't believe the news. And it's like, it's the same damn thing. You create whatever narrative you want for a specific outcome.
Yeah.
Right.
So with that being said, and I can hear somebody be like, why, like, there's so many celebrities out there that I'm sure like have good hearts and have the greatest intentions, like we were talking about. So why would they agree to do this sort of, be connected to this dark work or these dark rituals or whatever? And part of it is, through research and learning a little bit more about this sort of stuff is, there's mind control and mind manipulation that happens when the stars are young. And so I can actually give an example of something that I suspect was an experiment. And do you remember the Mickey Mouse Club? And there was like a bunch of kids that, and you can see Ryan Gosling and Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake and JC Chazes or something, like all of these like people, Felicity, they all kind of rose to fame. So they created this group of kids who were very, I guess like they just wanted to be famous, right? And very easily manipulated. And they call it the MK Ultra mind manipulation. And it is a form of brainwashing. So they start them young and then they bring them up through the industry. And then now they're big famous stars. And then they do what now they're stuck in this industry, but they don't think they're doing anything wrong because they've been brainwashed this whole time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then when a celebrity starts to like, I guess maybe be deprogrammed or start doing their own work to deprogram themselves, then they get flipped that narrative and they're going crazy or they're having a hard time and then they go into rehab, and when they're in rehab they're getting re-brainwashed. It's not because you notice that they all go to the same rehab center, Sinase or whatever, I don't know how to say it, but they all go to the same rehab center, anybody who's struggling, and then they get rehabilitated, which is re-manipulated in my opinion. And then they come out and then they're fine all of a sudden. Do you know what I mean? So then what I read somewhere, I can't remember where I read it, and I don't know if I should share this actually. I was telling you last night about the Marilyn Monroe thing. Should I share that?
Well, you have to now.
I have to do anything.
Well, people are gonna be like, what the hell?
Well, let's just say that I don't think I'll share the first part, but let's just say that this has been going on since like the 50s, the 40s, right? And what I read was that Marilyn Monroe was one of the first celebrities to be taken through this MLK mind brain manipulation brainwashing program. And basically she started to question, and it was working, but it wasn't working. And then at some point, oh, poor Marilyn, she died.
Yeah. Well, and I also wonder with that, because it's like, it even feels like with some of these stars, something starts to break down. Like, for instance, like Britney Spears, like it's kind of like, it feels, I don't know, like obviously I don't know how this works.
She malfunctioned, I think.
Well, and that's the thing, like, and it makes it feel like, because like, yes, this brain, this like brain control or like doing what, and we know that is actually a thing that can happen. You put somebody in a situation that, I don't know, let's say lock somebody in a room with blasting rock music 24/7 in the dark and stuff, you start to lose your mind and become insane. And so we know that can literally be something that can happen. So it's not something that's so out there that you're like, oh yeah, that's just in movies. It's like, no, that we know that can happen. And so, but I look at that and I think, okay, so for so long this worked, and then it's like you can see them like malfunctioning, like breaking down, the whatever it is, and it's kind of like, in a sense, like I just can see the energy of it, that it's like all of a sudden it's like the wires are being crossed, and it's like they can't even go and reprogram anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what it kind of feels like, because, and then it's just like, it's so fucking messed up and mushed up in there. It's like, now it's just like, how do we control the narrative? Because we can't get it back to what it used to be, what it started out as. We can't get this back. So let's now try to control the narrative, maybe keep them up on drugs, all these things, because it kind of feels like it doesn't work anymore at some point, and they just start to.
Yeah, it's called MK Ultra is what it's called.
Yeah.
I had to Google it because I needed to make sure I said it right. But MK
and Ultra. Then I Googled, it's industry plant.
Oh, an industry plant.
Plant, not implant. Industry plant.
Yeah.
But implant kind of is the same. Implant's like, put it in. Put it in. So yeah, no, and I'm like, it's so freaking fascinating. And even in the sense, like, same type of thing, puppeteers within the politics, you have a leader running a country. They're not fucking running the country. They've been hand selected. They're being told what to do. And they're a puppeteer. And again, you can look at that as that scale. And if they like Andy.
Sorry, I have things to say too.
She's so excited. She's like, so there's like, you know, even in that politic thing, like if you're going and you're like, okay, yeah, no, I want to be there. And even if you've just gone too far within that system and it's like, oh, yeah, I'll do whatever, like to be in this power and whatever. And now you're just being a puppeteer. You're just a face. You're just somebody that is the face of it, but somebody else is controlling all of the moves that are behind the scenes type of thing.
Yeah. And you can think of like there's been a few politicians who have made it with the right intention into the space that they deserve to be in. But over the last couple of years, because they didn't subscribe to, the expectations of the uppers, they have stepped down. So there was one, and I don't know for sure, like this is literally just surface level information here, but there was one woman in Alberta recently, and she was making some waves because she was pushing against the narrative that the government was trying to push upon them. And she even said to the point where, if you guys want, like she said to her province, if you guys want to have a gas vehicle power, like a truck powered by gas or diesel, buy it now, because in, I don't know, 3 years or something like that, she gave a time frame, you will not be able to purchase one. It will have to be electric. And so they're pushing the narrative of an electric vehicle. And electric vehicles, there's good and there's bad. There's a lot of bad that is coming out recently. Like there's a lot of information coming out about electric vehicles right now, but it also creates or takes away your power. If they were to shut down your power, how are you going to drive your electric vehicle, right?
You're not going to get, well, that's that movie on Netflix. What was that
exactly
called?
I can't remember.
Don't Look Up.
Anyway,
no, it's not that
so she was sharing that. You look it up. But she was sharing that recently, and then not long after that, I believe she's the one that stepped down from her position. Yeah. And then there was a lady, or I think she was like a president even, or like a prime minister in, I don't know for sure. Again, it's either like New Zealand or Sweden or something like that, like across seas. I don't pay too much attention. I guess I just noticed her because she was a mom of a young child, and she was like breastfeeding in Parliament, and she was saying all these beautiful things, and she was like standing her ground, and she was like fully in her power, and she was leading this country in a very divine feminine way. And I respected that, and I looked up to that, and I was like, wow, I'm so happy to know that there is a country being led by a female like her. And it wasn't long after COVID that she stepped down.
And it was like done.
Yeah, because she didn't subscribe to the narrative and to what is actually truly being pushed upon all of the leaders of the world right now.
Everything. Yeah. Well, in that movie, so just going back to the cars, in that movie, like it really kind of does show in this, all of a sudden these these electric cars, because it looked like everybody and all the electric cars were just had a mind of their own, and were just going down this highway, and all you saw was just crash. Like it was just like this bottleneck of these electric cars.
It was a bottleneck of Teslas.
It's a bottleneck of Teslas because the control of it was not within the people. Nobody was in them. It was just literally all crashing in. And it makes you realize, like, when you take that, when there's control like that, you can easily see how it can be like, well, this is done. You can't get it. I guess you could see that with gas too. Like they could literally just be like, no gas anymore type of thing. But it's easier when it's electronic type of thing. It's not a substance that you can. And it's like, yeah, like how giving away our power and how easily this can like happen. You can really kind of step back. And you know what? And people can sit here and be like, oh my God, it's just all conspiracy theories and everything. Like you can sit there and be like, everything is conspiracy. You can think this of everything. And absolutely, you can go too far on anything. But there's nothing wrong with questioning a narrative. There's nothing wrong with kind of sitting back and being like, looking at different sides. And, you know, conspiracy theory was like conspiracy theory, the actual like conspiracy theory, the words and the narrative around conspiracy theory was made up to disempower
the people
who question things.
Yes.
And so, you know, this then it was created like, okay, we're going to call this conspiracy theory, and we're going to create a narrative around conspiracy theory that if you at all are associated with conspiracy theory, you're a wacko, you're crazy, you're a whatever. And so now it's taken on its own form where people will even just say it without even fucking knowing what they're saying. Like I remember having that with my sister. We got out of the car and there was like, it was like something she had said and she was like, oh my God, like just kind of threw the word out there. So whether it was like anti-vaxxer or conspiracy theories, just this word. And I was like, you literally can't just paint everything with that brush. And I'm like, so if you're saying that, then I guess I'm considered XYZ. Well, no, you're not. I'll know. And I was like, but you are. You're saying if anybody doesn't say what or go with your narrative or what you think or society thinks, then you are classified as this. And I think we can paint that brush so widely that we don't realize like it's literally people within your lives that are going like, you know, I'm just questioning the reality. There's nothing wrong with sitting there and going, this doesn't seem right. What about this? Oh, conspiracy theory. You're a wacko. And so it's like, oh my God, like it's just so crazy. But it, you know, that's where it's just like sitting here. And again, yes, everybody can go too far with anything in life. You know, you could be living in a bunker out of society and not talking to anybody. Like, obviously, there's always, you know, things that can go too far. But I think like the biggest thing is like just being open to questioning the reality and being open to other perspectives. And I think like not allowing our ego to get too far in the way to dismiss it before even sitting with it, to look at it and see how it could possibly be possible.
Before you react, you know, with that, oh my God, you're so crazy. Before you react, or if you react like that, taking a second to be like, okay, well, I hear you. Like, let's just acknowledge that I hear what you're saying. But before dismissing it completely, maybe allow yourself to sit with it for a second and think about it. That's all you have to do. That's all anybody has to do when they're questioning or when they're being faced with any type of narrative. And I just want to say, like, I think one of the beautiful things that is happening because of all of the conspiracy theorists out there and all of these things that are coming out and asking you to question and look at things from different perspectives. I think one of the most beautiful things that I can see happening is that people are learning to homestead. You know what I mean? And you kind of mentioned like taking it too far and getting like, some people can take it as far as getting a bunker. Hello, Mark Zuckerberg. Why are you getting a bunker, Mr. Man of Snapchat, whatever his name is? Why are you getting a bunker right beside Mr. Zuckerberg? Like, what's going on? Hello, writing's on the wall, right? So maybe we do need bunkers.
Something you know something we do not know.
Yeah, but obviously Zuckerberg has like one of the biggest ways of influencing society with Facebook and with like all of those social media apps. They are how people are influenced in the moment. But that wasn't my point. My point was that I love how people are taking back their control and their power by learning how to do homesteading things. And I don't mean like, okay, going out and buying 2 acres or 6 acres or whatever and getting cows and chickens and goats and having a huge garden. And if you're doing that, amazing. I wish I could do that, to be honest. But having the skill to like, we've lost the skills to grow our garden and our foods, or to even like cook meals from scratch, and how to can and how to like all like harvest and all of that, and work with the seasons and know what fruit is in season because we can get it any time of the year, or what vegetables are in season, and eating and planning our meals around what vegetables and things that we have. Like, we've lost that, and that was on purpose, but we've lost that skill because they took that away from us when they started to introduce in the 80s the easy meals like Hamburger Helper and like boxed mashed potatoes and like convenience
spaghetti,
and right, all of the convenient foods that they said we would save time with. And so it's all interconnected, but I equate it to almost like I had a friend once, or I still have a friend, but she said to me once, she said, I think it's important for every woman to go to school and have a skill that they can fall back on if they choose to be a stay-at-home mom. And I've seen this even as a mortgage specialist in my role and in the bank and stuff, like being completely dependent on another person to house you, to feed you, to take care of you financially, and then dealing with the day where that rug is swept out from under your feet, and now you have to figure out how, like, now you got to work part-time at Walmart or something because you don't have the skill to do anything that will bring in a substantial income for you. So she said to me, and she had she has a big family. She was a stay-at-home mom at the time, but she was going to school and she was getting her degree. And that was the purpose. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I need to make sure that I'm prepared and that I'm prepared for my family if something happens. And I believe that same, that can be equated to having the skills of some homesteading,
Absolutely.
And we saw that recently in the last few years, like the grocery shelves were empty. There was a time where we could only fill our gas tanks to a certain amount because gasoline was hard to find. We were stuck at home during COVID for however many months. Like there's been little experiences that have asked us to start paying attention to those skills that we've lost, so that if something does happen, we aren't so reliant and dependent on the man. Not saying like your husband, but I meant like the government or the city or anybody, the grocery stores, the people.
Reliant on anybody. And the more and I think that's where there's a lot of fear, or there's a lot of speculation and talk about how to be very aware of giving our power away and how that may look. So if that looks like a digital currency, in that sense, you could literally see how we take the tangible away, how not having the tangible, you could just lose whatever because it's a flip of a button. And so really kind of like when we're looking at some of these things coming into play and looking at how much does that make me reliant on something, and it's very true. Like we've taken that away. Like I remember with like clients that would come in and I would deal with estates, and the female, maybe because she didn't have a credit card, and so had literally no credit bureau, and to get credit at a middle age when you've never had it
without any income, because you've never had to work,
is very hard. Even with income, I remember credit, they would be like, why doesn't she have any credit? And they would be like, well, because her husband, like, and then it was like, I'm like, man, it felt like it was easier to get a credit card at 18, 19 when you could, versus if you were in your 40s and your 50s or whatever, all of a sudden now looking to establish credit. And so like things like that, like right there, like such a good example of that micro of giving your power too much to anybody, system, any person, whatever it is, like how self-sufficient are we? And, the internet in that case is another one where we're so freaking reliant on technology that if our technology, like if we really sit here and we think about this, if all of a sudden we were wiped out, and we've heard of this as a possibility many, many times with these solar flares and stuff like that, being like, well, there could be 3 days of darkness and all these things. But if we were literally wiped out with our electricity, our internet, our electronics, holy shit.
I just hear car alarm going off, like validation.
Right? Well, and it's just like, we're so reliant on all of that. And
well, we are. I mean, our business is all online, so we would have to figure out how to earn income with the skills that we have in our communities, which would be fine. We could figure that out. But like even our jobs at the bank, the the bank would shut down.
It's all digitized, right? Like before it used to be paper. Now everything's on there. And it's like, you just realize, even when one small little piece, like just like when Interact has gone down, because that's randomly gone down, and how many people have panicked. Panicked. I panicked. I'm like, but yeah, it's everybody, we can still see you, Mandy. You're on camera.
Sorry. Jace came into my room and he's like, where's the dogs? Where's the dogs?
And you're like me. I'm like, we can still see your mouth moving.
Well, only like 2 people watch our YouTube videos, so
don't get out of here.
I'm just kidding. Maybe 20.
We've had more than that.
They're in the kennel.
They're in the kennel.
Because they would bark.
I know. I'm like, I heard my kids come in and I didn't hear Betty bark. So I was like,
oh, that's nice. Good job, Betty.
Good job, Betty. I think she's deaf. I think she is going deaf, which is fantastic. But then you startle her because she didn't hear you.
Right.
But Charlie, my bird, I heard him going. It's like a little bird alarm. Cute. Oh, I know, my little baby boy. All right, so this was fun.
I
love talking about this. Ooh, I do want to bring up, like, just quickly, because I was listening before we came on here, I was listening to Elizabeth April, and we've talked about Elizabeth April many times, but she's done a recent video on
the Super Bowl.
On the rituals of the satanic rituals of it, and an interesting thing that she kind of like threw out there, and I was like, no way. It was like she had said the relationship between Taylor and
Travis
Kelce
suspicious
is like, well, she goes, oh, this is literally a contract, like they were told to be together, blah blah blah, and you know, and like Elizabeth April, there's so many things that she has predicted or said or whatever that's been validated. Like I do have a lot of faith in what she says, and it's not the first time I've heard of that thing, but you know, I was sitting with this and I was coming up the elevator and I was like, why does that bother you? I'm like, why do you want that not to be true? And I'm like, and I think it's like, we all, the love story, right? We all sit there and be like, like, we love to see love. We love to see people in love. We love to see that. We see it on the movie screens. We see it with people. We experience it. We love that. And it's just so disheartening when you can see something that you're like, ooh, I want that to be so true because it's so beautiful and blah, blah, blah. And then to realize, like, could that possibly be fake? And you're like, no, I want to believe in the fake. It doesn't look fake to me either, but I saw, because that's the thing. And again, I'm like, it doesn't look fake. No fucking way. And again, like, that's the innocent. But I also could see the other side of it. I could see the business side of it.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Super Bowl it's made the most amount of money that it's ever made in history, because of why.
Yeah.
And so I do see it.
Yeah, I can see that potential. Absolutely. But I just want to point out, like, the Super Bowl is one of the, she shared this, so go watch the video, but we'll share some points. But one of the biggest opportunities for this industry to hold a ritual in front of everybody, and the reason is because the energy is so potent. So the day is specific, the location is specific. That's why they move the Super Bowl around. Doesn't matter if your team is playing, like, you know, usually in the sports world, if your team is in the final, I feel like this is, like, maybe I'm wrong, but one of the teams would host that final game, right? Yeah. Like, you think of like hockey, and same thinking, like, 2 teams are playing in the Stanley Cup final, they're going to go back and forth between the different arenas in their hometowns. But with the Super Bowl, and I just got shivers, and so validation. But the Super Bowl doesn't go to any of the host cities. It goes to a different city every time. So the city is specific, the time of year is specific. And the artist is specific. Usually there's some type of ritual they'll use. And so they use the energy because there's so many people watching the Super Bowl, right? So I guess this year, having Taylor Swift there, so many more eyes were watching. So there was a lot more energy being generated for them to harness to do whatever dark shit they were doing behind the scenes. But, you know, you can tell like the red is always used, red and white. Feels like it's a common theme in satanic
like
rituals. And so there was like last year, you think of Rihanna's Super Bowl halftime show. It was so dark. It was so gross. It made me feel uncomfortable. I didn't know any of this at the time, but now it all makes sense. But also tying that to the Grammys, there was an artist, I don't know who it was because I didn't really watch. I just saw a clip of her concert, part of the concert, but it was very bloody. She was wearing red, and it was almost like she was being indoctrinated into, and it was like her ritual, her
sacrifice or
her sacrifice, whatever.
initiation.
Into whatever world she was, you know, this industry or whatever, but she had to perform. And you've seen, if you think about like all of the celebrities who do these types of performances, like all of them have done it. Like you think of Madonna, like she's had so many of those types of performances that they're just using the energy of the concert, the energy of the room. And so you can even the Taylor Swift concerts, although it's very like, you know, light and fun songs, you can't deny the energy that's being generated in that building, in that area. And even like people say that Beyonce does spell casting in her songs and in her concerts, and if you pay attention, you'll start to notice it.
You will start, and like even in the sense of them calling it out or doing like the Illuminati symbol or literally, and that's a great way to again be like, ha ha ha, yeah, the Illuminati, that's why we're doing this. And so then people are like, well, why would they do that in plain sight if it wasn't real? So it's like such a smart tactic.
It's manipulative.
You know, it is so manipulative. And you know, like even I think there was like Ice Spice, what? What's her name?
I don't even know who that is, but now she's everywhere.
She's everywhere. Yeah. But she was up there with Taylor, and I was like, oh man, like, how is this person connected to this person? And I remember being like,
and they're not.
And they're not, or whatever it is. And it just is like, it just is so eye-opening that it makes you pause and take a step back to be like, holy shit, are they literally like thinking we're that stupid, and they're just like holding it out in front of us like plain as sight to be like, you fucking fools.
That's exactly what they're doing.
Like, holy shit. And I was like, blown away with that. And I'm like, you know, as much as I don't want to believe that Taylor Swift and Travis, damn it, are not like the real thing. And I really hope that they are. I literally can see the other reality of that. I could see how that could be a business contract. I could see how these elite people, whoever's running the show, is like, you know what, guys, we need you to we're going to start this thing because it's going to create a lot of money, and we want more money and more power. We need to create more of this buzz, blah, blah, blah. You guys need to do this, but whatever it is. And it fucking worked. Like, you know, Taylor was in a 6-year relationship that you barely saw.
I know. And now over the news, everywhere, everything. It makes no sense for who she is, who she was. You know what I mean? It doesn't fit with her, or at least reputation, So it's suspicious. But I just think we should let's wrap that. Do you have anything else you want to share before we wrap? Okay. I just wanted to say, what can we do? Because I can hear people being like, well, if they're doing that in plain sight, like, how can we stop it? You know what I mean? Like, I think not subscribing to the agenda or to the narrative that you can clearly see now is mocking us in a sense, and not just with Hollywood and celebrities, but also with like the government and the whole world order, and even down into your daily life. Like you can, like your municipal government, like you can just being aware. And I think that some people will feel very passionate to advocate and to uprise and to protest. And that is fantastic because other people don't feel called to do that. but it is all comes down to soul contracts and part of purpose, right? So some people are here to protest and advocate and share and be angry or fueled by that, you know, that just injustice and all that sort of stuff. So there will be people that fight against it in that sense. And you think of like, anyway, I could go on another tangent, but I'm gonna rein that back in. But anyway, and there will be people like us who feel like we can talk about it and we can share about it just so that people can be more aware and open. But we not necessarily feel called to get so angry and protest about it, but we're also not buying into it. We see through it now. So I don't take anything that I see in celebrity news. I don't follow celebrity news anymore. I've totally disconnected from my interest in any type of celebrities, to be honest with you.
I haven't.
Allie, do your job.
I love it.
But there's an awareness.
But you know, I think at the end of the day, like we know, because sometimes it can feel like I have no say, I have no power. Okay, fine, we know this. Now what? You know, knowledge is key with anything, and bringing anything to the light and being aware of it. That alone is empowerment, and that alone, when you have more and more people that are aware of it, doesn't mean we're all protesting, but they're just aware of it. Just means that more and more people that are not going to buy into the bullshit, maybe not going to buy into the next thing that's going to come out that's going to want the masses to follow those little things. So it's,
and also sharing your knowledge with your children, like having conversations with your kids about buying into, and then helping them see through the veil a little bit, not scaring them. Obviously, we don't need to tell them everything, but until they're older, but they can do that for themselves. But just so you know, unhooking from that narrative that keeps you so distracted and so I guess blind to other things. But I think it's important to touch on, like, when you see through that veil, like sometimes it can be hard to be okay with like being in this experience. You'd be like, this planet is so shitty. It is so dark. Like, what am I doing here? And I think remembering that part of your purpose for being here, yes, it's a really dense, disgusting experience at times, like when you're looking at it from that perspective, but remembering that you're here to create change. Just by being here is creating change. Your light, your vibration, and keep doing your own inner work to raise your frequency so that it can change. Because the world is shifting, the earth is shifting. We're here to be a part of that shift, to be part of that change, but we have to do our own individual work on ourselves to ensure that we're helping that shift.
And we're way more powerful than we know or give ourselves credit for. So yay! Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Hopefully it wasn't too triggering.
It's fun.
It is. It is. It's interesting. You take it or leave it for whatever it is, what resonates, what doesn't. You know, that's something we've always kind of stood by. Like, there could be something that we resonate with and believe now, and a year from now we're like, you know, where more awareness has come or more insight has come, and we've grown as humans, where we're like, we see it in a different light. So that's where we're always growing and evolving. Everybody is. So so we hope you have a fantastic week, and we will see you next week.
Bye.